Welcome to yet another edition of Foreign Correspondents. I am Min Sunhee, and with me on set is our group of foreign journalists. Welcome back.
Nice to be back. Nice to see you.
Now, it's been an eventful week, to say the least, in this part of the world. So let's start with some of the stories you covered this week. Donald, we'll start with you.
Well, obviously, top priority was the assassination of Kim Jong-nam. Many theories about it. We've heard them all. But frankly, I'm not too much into far-out theories. I pretty well settle on the view that the North Koreans were behind it. I'm wondering what is the real response from China. They've come out with the suspension of coal imports from North Korea.
Marcus, did you cover the event as well?
I did, yes. It was a really busy week. I covered the event, the assassination of Kim Jong-nam, and then the arrest of JYL of Samsung just a few days later. So a very busy week. I
see, Frank.
I was on to both of those stories. I also covered another protest taking place at Gwanghwamun, as two different groups opposed to the deployment of THAAD were protesting there on the weekend again.
Right, so as we just mentioned, last week, the firstborn son of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il and half-brother of the current leader Kim Jong-un was killed at Malaysia's international airport in Kuala Lumpur. We have details on Kim Jong-nam's death in this report. On February 13th, Kim Jong-nam, the estranged half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, was murdered. The death of Kim Jong-nam quickly made headlines around the world. One of the reasons is because many believe North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was behind the death of his half-brother. In a press conference that took place on the 19th, Malaysian police announced that the four suspects, including already apprehended Ri Chong-chul, are North Korean nationals, bolstering this belief.
I confirm the perpetrators, the suspects, the four suspects that I have stated very much earlier is from North Korea.
Born in 1971 as the eldest son of late North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-nam was educated abroad in Switzerland and Russia in the 1980s. Following the traditions of succession, he was said to have been groomed as the next leader until the 1990s. But he's widely believed to have fallen out of favor after being held at Tokyo's Narita airport for using a fake passport in 2001. In the past, Kim Jong-nam is said to have not shown much interest in taking the reins of power in North Korea. Yoji Komi, a Japanese journalist at Tokyo Shimbun who had maintained contact with Kim Jong-nam, held a press conference on the 17th, saying that Kim Jong-nam was critical of the system that was in place in North Korea. After his half-brother came to power, Kim Jong-nam is said to have lived in fear of assassination.
김정남의 암살은 김정은이 집권한 이후 스탠딩 오더, 즉 반드시 처리해야 되는 명령이었다고 합니다. 2012년 본격적인 시도가 한 번 있었으며 이후 2012년 4월 김정남은 김정은에게 저와 제 가족을 살려달라는 서신을 발송하기도 한 바 있다고 합니다.
He even wrote a letter to Kim Jong-un, begging that his family and himself be spared. But in the end, he faced an unexpected death that has shocked many. Right, so aside from the details of the assassination itself and perhaps information about his life prior to this unfortunate incident, what is the focus of the foreign media coverage of Kim Jong-nam's death?
Well, I'm sure that the investigation, I think we're all sort of much interested in what the autopsy is revealing. There was a very interesting comment or statement from the Defense Ministry, which they said that 5 different types of biological or chemical agents might have been used. North Korea has a rather extensive biochem warfare agency, and they've got 40 different solutions that they've developed there. So it's very interesting to see what they actually use.
The whodunit aspect, how this was done is I think gripped a lot of people around the world. It's such an astonishing sort of event to take place.
Now, according to Malaysian authorities, at least 5 of the suspects are North Koreans. And based on this, the Unification Ministry here has put the blame on North Korea. Do you believe that, like Donald mentioned earlier, but do you believe that Kim Jong-un ordered the assassination? Donald, do you believe?
Well, I listened to the Unification Minister talking yesterday at great length at the Seoul Foreign Correspondents Club, and he was pretty convincing. The acting president earlier in the day said much the same thing, and the Defense Minister said the same thing.
여러 정보와 정황을 종합해 볼 때 이번 사건의 배후에 북한 정권이 있는 것이 확실해 보입니다.
이런 공포 정치는 북한 내부에 반감을 일으킬 수밖에 없고 이에 따라서 체제 불안정성은 증가할 것으로.
They're fairly convincing. I think they're frankly credible.
I agree. It certainly seems like Pyongyang is behind this, right? I mean, Kim Jong-un has shown before that he is prepared to purge members of his own family. In 2013, he had his own uncle, Jang Sung-taek, executed. Also, if you try to look at the world through Kim Jong-un's eyes, when you're in a hereditary system like North Korea, where power is being transferred from one generation to the next, an older brother would always be considered a potential threat, especially an older brother who's in exile and who's been criticizing his brother in power and the regime in North Korea.
I also feel that last year the vice ambassador of North Korea to London defected to South Korea. And over the past few months, he's been coming out into the press quite a bit, criticizing the North Korea regime, calling for unification. Very prominently, he came to the Foreign Correspondents Club, I believe. I think that might have had some influence over the timing, if it is indeed proven that North Korea and Kim Jong-un are behind this.
Right. Why Malaysia, though? So the timing you spoke about, Frank. Why Malaysia?
Well, I think that they had, probably tried this before in different places, and they got wind of the fact that Kim Jong-nam was in Kuala Lumpur, so they set it up there rather elaborately. Now, the real question is why the Kuala Lumpur International Airport? Rather than a back alley, a crowded airport, big crowds, you do it quickly and leave. The Vietnamese woman who went up behind him, according to this video, or which we've seen, just quickly put this thing on him and then left. Nobody stopped her when she was on her way out. She got in a taxi and left.
If Kim Jong-un is to blame for Kim Jong-nam's death, some claim that it might be because China has been looking to Kim Jong-nam as a potential leader in the case of a collapse in North Korea.
I mean, it would make sense for China to sort of to look after Kim Jong-nam, to have him as a card to play later should something happen with Kim Jong-un, or should the regime in North Korea become unstable in some way.
I don't think that China would have imagined installing Kim Jong-nam in power in Pyongyang. I mean, this guy was a playboy, a gambler. He had no known leadership qualities, et cetera, et cetera. But he was a convenient foil to Kim Jong-un. And certainly China sort of wanted to prop him up. I think they did want to protect him, but maybe they were pretty lax in their protection. Maybe he got to the airport and figured, well, I'll just go in and check in, The video that we've seen shows this man, like so many others we've seen in airports, just sort of strolling up, he looks at a sign to check on whether the flight is going, where, is this the right place? Then he goes over to this machine where you get your boarding card, and somebody comes up to him and puts a cloth on his face.
Yeah, seeing that video, I was kind of surprised at a couple of things. First he had no security; nobody was with him. I read a report saying that he had sort of dismissed having security guards with him at all times some years ago. Oh, Another surprising thing is that there's no security in the airport even after this event takes place. There's no police rushing to try to apprehend the person. It was pretty obvious that there was, a violent incident took place in an airport, an international airport, a place of the most intense security anywhere in a city, and somebody, got away with murder.
There is belief that the North Korean public is not aware of the death of Kim Jong-nam, and there is speculation that South Korea may be thinking of passing on the news using the loudspeakers placed right next to the border. What do you believe would be the response of the North Korean public once they learn that Kim Jong-nam has been killed?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's something to suggest that not all North Koreans know that he even exists, right? Because there's an official Kim family tree in North Korea, and he might not be beyond that. So.
Or if he was on it, he's not on it now, because they'll erase him like they have other officials that have been purged, and they're purged out of previous pictures taken of.
But news does get in there. The North Koreans do turn on VOA and BBC and KBS.
At the expense of their lives, yes.
Right. I mean, but it gets in here and there. So I think rumors might be going around. But I think it's very easy for people to tell anybody who's listening, this is all South Korean propaganda, don't listen to a word of it, it's all nonsense.
They are deceiving us, they are concealing something, they are colluding with outside forces who are interesting to damage the image of our republic.
They're not going to come out with a confession and say, oh, sorry, we did it. Forget about that.
Because they have been accusing Malaysian authorities of conspiring with hostile forces, was it? Right. Now, both brothers Kim Jong-nam and Kim Jong-un were educated in Switzerland, so they were both exposed to capitalist environments, but they stood poles apart with regard to the idea of the family dictatorship in North Korea. Do you suppose this is simply a difference in character, or does it extend beyond that?
Well, there's certainly a difference in character between the two. But when we say they're poles apart, they became poles apart because Kim Jong-il eliminated Kim Jong-nam from the succession after the incident where he was turned back trying to get into Japan to take his son to Tokyo Disneyland. He was carrying a Dominican Republic passport, and the Japanese immigration stopped him. Now, had he not gone through that kind of incident, or probably some other stuff that we don't know about, had he really sort of done what he should have done, he might have been leading North Korea, and he might have been just like his brother. Who knows? But since he was kicked out, he did give occasional interviews. He spoke to a Japanese writer who wrote a book in which he said that he didn't think that Kim Jong-un would last long and he might be deposed. And he also said that he didn't really believe in dynasty, rule by a ruling dynasty. But this was after he was out of the running. This was after he'd been eliminated by his father.
He also seemed to continue to take an interest in what was going on in North Korea. So this Japanese journalist who wrote a book about him, when he talks about Kim Jong-nam, says that he seemed to be concerned about the people of North Korea, truly concerned about what was happening in the country.
So if Kim Jong-nam had taken the reins of North Korea, do you believe he would have promoted the pro-reform approach that he openly encouraged?
Well, they say that one of the reasons that he is more reform-oriented than Kim Jong-un is because he spent more time outside the country in both Switzerland and Moscow for his education. But I think speculating whether he would be a vastly different leader is kind of difficult because, you know, getting into that role, there's probably a whole set of circumstances that even Kim Jong-un faced when he became leader that restrict the sort of policies that he can employ.
There's a whole system of which you're a victim. I mean, granted, you can go around executing anybody who looks cross-eyed at you or falls asleep in a meeting, but there's a whole system of military control there. You know, I'm not sure. You know, it's very easy to say, "Oh, why does he do all this?" But you're caught in this system, even though you're at the top.
And a lot of people thought Kim Jong-un would be the reformer. When he first came into
Right,
power, there was a lot of
stories.
optimism surrounding him because of his foreign education, and other indications suggested maybe he will try to reform the country. And even in his initial period as leader, there were indications he would reform the country. But it seems to be somewhat of an uphill task.
And don't forget Dennis Rodman. You mentioned LeBron.
Yeah, the basketball. Being a big basketball fan, of course, the Dennis Rodman visit was another sort of instance, maybe an opportunity for engagement. He's perhaps the Westerner with the most closest relationship with Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-nam's assassination has triggered ripple effects across the Korean peninsula and elsewhere around the world amid rising concerns over security. We take a look at this report. News about the murder of Kim Jong-nam in Malaysia triggered a swift response from the South Korean government. On February 19th, Seoul's Unification Ministry concluded that the North Korean regime was most certainly behind Kim's death.
우리 정부는 동피살자가 여러 정보와 정황상 김정남이 확실하다고 보며 용의자 5명이 북한 국적자임을 볼 때 이번 사건의 배후에 북한 정권이 있는 것으로 보고 있다.
The incident also sparked discussion about security issues within South Korean political circles. There has also been action from China. On the 18th, its Commerce Ministry announced it would suspend coal imports from North Korea until the end of this year. Beijing had already been put in an awkward position after the North test-fired a ballistic missile on the 12th.
中方反对朝鲜违反安理会决定进行有关的发射活动。
Continual missile tests by Pyongyang can help strengthen Seoul's argument for deploying THAAD, a move which Beijing strongly opposes. Some experts believe the death of Kim Jong-nam has led to greater pressure from China, as he was reportedly under the protection of the Chinese government. Meanwhile, all eyes are now on the North Korean regime and what move it will take next. Some North Korea experts say the recent incident is a sign of increased insecurity from the Kim Jong-un leadership. They believe signs of unrest from the public and fear among those in the top levels and strong sanctions from other countries may undermine the Kim dynasty. The death of Kim Jong-nam caught the international community by surprise, and the effects of it are expected to last for the time being. So, the assassination has triggered much security concerns here in Korea as well, and there are some politicians who are also saying we may not be safe. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, we have high-profile defectors here in South Korea, including the recent Tae Yong-ho, the North Korean ambassador to the UK, the former North Korean ambassador to the UK. What are his chances of an assassination here?
Well, I would hope that there would not be much chance of assassination because I think that he's pretty well protected. Very well protected. I saw a CBS 60-minute piece also in which he was walking down a street with CBS correspondent in central Seoul, shopping street, and he went in a subway ride and so forth. But the CBS correspondent very honestly pointed out, by the way, there are 6 bodyguards with us too who are off camera.
Earlier in the program, both you, Donald, and Frank, you mentioned China banning all imports of coal from North Korea in response to the latest provocations. Do you see China, Frank, as taking perhaps a more active stance and plans to denuclearize North Korea?
Well, I think they're doing the best they can. I feel that despite events over the past couple of weeks, I still favor engagement with North Korea, and that engagement should be unconditional. One of the stories that I did this week was a year after Gaesong, and through engagement we can encourage North Korea to give up its nuclear and missile programs and rejoin the international community. That's not going to happen unless there's a change in policy, a significant change in policy by the United States and South Korea. And once there's an election here in South Korea, I think that that might happen.
I see. What about staying with Washington's policy on North Korea? Do you see Washington toughening up its policies against Pyongyang given this latest event? Marcus?
I mean, the sanctions imposed on North Korea are already quite tough. There are reports saying that they're hurting North Korea to some extent already, and if China steps up and does its part as well, then it could hurt the economy of North Korea even more. But is that gonna affect the country's nuclear program? There's reasons to doubt that, because that's the highest priority of Kim Jong-un.
Donald, will Washington place Pyongyang back on its list of state sponsors of terrorism, given this latest event?
I don't think they're going to do that. What's that list mean, So what? They put them on a list and everybody gets excited. Few newspaper stories, a lot of newspaper stories probably, a lot of response from North Korea and from people who are very much in favor of reconciliation process. So I don't think it's necessary to put North Korea back on a list of state sponsors of terrorism.
Frank, do you see the missile test that was launched on the 12th of February and Kim Jong-nam's assassination on the 13th, a day later? Do you see these events as indication of perhaps instability in North Korea, or maybe fear by Kim Jong-un?
No, I view it as completely the opposite. I think Kim Jong-un has absolute control over North Korea. That North Korea is a stable country, and if the international community wants to see a change in that country's policies toward the international community, they're going to have to talk to North Korea.
Right, okay, well, before we go, one last question. This will be a difficult one, but how long do you see the family dictatorship in North Korea lasting?
Well, that's an easy one, because I can tell you right now, I don't know. How about that? That's a very simple answer.
Not a lot of us know
I think you can speak for everyone, Don, because I don't think anybody really knows.
But I think, though, that isn't there sort of a rule of thumb that the third generation is generally the last generation of a dynasty? Haven't I seen that somewhere? Now, Kim Jong-un, he has a son, doesn't he? Is he going to be able to take over as the fourth generation? Will this go down like the kings kings and queens in Europe going for centuries? I would think that rather unlikely. But and I would think that North Korea cannot go on forever. I'm not saying they're going to collapse tomorrow or next year or in the next 10 years. But I don't think North Korea can go on forever and ever as it is. And I don't think that the Korean Peninsula can go on as it is. And I think that, eventually there will be change, but not that I would never predict when or even how. I think we might be in for surprises of one sort or another. So I have no idea. I don't know if this dynastic rule can continue. Again, getting back to my initial response.
Marcus, before we go, how do you assess today's discussion on Kim Jong-nam's assassination?
Well, it's a really it's a big news story for journalists here in Seoul. It's once again it's one of those stories where you have to be very careful what you read into it. A lot of reports have been made suggesting that there could be instability in Pyongyang, or that this could be that the execution of Kim Jong-nam could be the response to some some power struggle in North Korea. And you just got to be really careful when you report about these issues. You got to step back and look at the facts, which we've been doing today, I think. So yeah, it's been a really interesting week to be reporting out of Seoul.
Frank?
Yeah, I agree with Marcus. It's, when that story surfaced, it really, I think, absorbed the international community to find out what happened here. Such a brazen murder taking place at an international airport of a significant political figure here on the Korean Peninsula.
Right now, on a lighter note, the word February comes from the Roman festival of purification known as Februar, during which people were ritually washed on the 15th of this month. Well, before the end of February 2017, I hope you'll be able to wash away all negativity and allow a fresh breath of positivity in your homes. Thank you for watching.